Welcome to another episode of the Power Within podcast. I'm your host, Laurie. Today, I'm very excited to share with you guys my interview with Cindy Busby. Cindy is an actress with over 70 film and television credits to her name. She is one of the most kindest and positive people I've ever gotten to speak to. And in this episode, we cover topics such as positivity, world visions, self-love and self-care, power of pets, and some healthy options for your life. I really hope that you guys enjoy this conversation. It was such an honor for me to be able to have her on the show to share this conversation with you guys. And I hope that you get a lot out of it, and I hope that you really enjoy it. Thank you all so much for listening. Hello, Cindy, and welcome to the Power Within podcast. I'm so honored to have you as my first guest, and I find it is very fitting considering it is International Women's Day.
I know!
To be celebrated.
So exciting! I'm so excited to be here and to be your first guest, and yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
I'm so excited to have you here too because you fit everything that my podcast is all about. So it is such an honor for me to have you on here. And so I'll just jump right in with this and start. Your positivity is contagious, very, very much so, along with your happy nature. You're just such a wonderful person. How do you maintain such a positive outlook when things may arise in your life or in the world that can be downers?
Whoa, you're getting right in there, Laurie. Wow. I mean, listen, I'm still a human being. I still have some down days or some down moments or, trying to figure out what is life. But, I think the biggest thing is I've been actively working, on my internal self for years now. And, whether that's through reading, through meditation, through writing, through, understanding what makes me tick, what makes the world tick. And I feel like when you can start to get clarity and understanding that, we're all just trying to do our best and we're all, I don't know, just here to like learn and live and figure it out. And when you realize that that's kind of like the journey, I feel like there's a lot less pressure. And, I actively work on my monkey mind and my ego and all that kind of good stuff, and realize that doesn't define me. Like the thoughts that come through me, like I just allow them to come through me and not hold on to them, whereas I definitely used to do that. And again, like through writing and meditation, I've been able to kind of get through those moments. But yeah, to stay positive, like I feel like the biggest misconception about being positive is that you never have bad moments. Like I think that that's like the biggest thing that I find that people are like, like I had a bad day, but I'm just going to stay positive. And they kind of just bulldoze through the feeling that they're going through, which is not okay, in that you're going to compartmentalize this feeling that is then going to keep showing up for you. Whereas when you accept what you're going through and allow it to just be and not judge it and not try to like get rid of it, but just try to like feel it and love it, then I feel like you can move on and then be positive. But I don't think it's possible for any human being to just be positive. Like it's just not a thing. Like, I believe that we live in a world of duality where, if you have, cold, then you have hot. And when you have, dark, you have light. And when you have positive, you have negative. But they work together because, through the tough times is when you grow and learn the most. And I have certainly been met with a lot of challenges, as, most of us have. And I think when you can start having the awareness of being grateful for those moments because you know what lies on the other side, then that's kind of like where I'm at, where I don't enjoy those challenges, but I can look beyond them and know that beyond the challenge is the lesson, is the growth. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I could talk about as far as positivity goes. That's kind of like my rant, but
Yeah, and you actually touched on a couple of things. So I'm going to start with where you talked about how people have this misconception that, oh, you're positive all the time, and that's just not the reality.
yeah.
So people tend to really have a skewed view of, positivity and happiness because of, you see social media is so prevalent and everyone only posts all their happy moments or highlight
Mhm.
reels and the filtered photos and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So with social media having that tool, how do you find that it's beneficial for you while not losing who you are too, to use those tools?
Well, social media is such a, like you mentioned, it's such a weird and funny place. It can be incredibly positive and a really great, information tool, and a really great way for us to keep in touch with people like we look up to, or, we enjoy their message. But it can also be a really like delusional space where even some people that are posting don't even remember what they look like, or they,
Yeah.
or you see them in the street and you're like, wait, who is that? And they're like, that's that person. You're like, what? But beyond the physical, I think that there's a lot to be, but I feel like this has existed before social media. Like, I think we put a lot of emphasis like on social media because it's such an active part of our society. But this has existed for a long time, whether it wasn't social media, whether it was just, people like at school and like things they were going through there, or whatnot. But I don't know. I think that the work starts from within. And so if you can do that work from within and not try to find external, I think a lot of us are looking for external validation constantly, whether that's external love, whether that's external messaging, like I said, validation, acceptance. But I think that when we love ourselves, we accept ourselves, and we validate ourselves, whether it's positive or negative, then we're not so concerned about the external world, because we know that our own truth is what matters most. We know ourselves the best. And just because someone decided to make a judgment about someone else doesn't mean it's true. Like, and again, we're all coming at it from our own perspective. And like, if there's like 8 billion people in the world, like we're all with 8 billion perspectives. And I think that if we can love all of those perspectives, whether we agree with them or not, we're going to be in a much better place. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming at it. I mean, I still struggle. Like, I still find myself comparing to people, or comparing myself to what I looked like 10 years ago. And even then though, like, that's the crazy part, is like, even then I didn't appreciate what I had then, and it's a
Yeah.
reminder that all you have is this now moment and this now feeling, and to appreciate this now, because it's all great, and it's all, again, it's like all perspective, and it's all a beautiful thing. Like, it's interesting. I'm reading a book right now, and one of the things I was reading last night in bed was like loving ourselves, and how incredibly beautiful we all are. And like, how when we walk down the street and we see a dog, or we see a bird, or we see a tree or a flower, we don't judge that tree, we don't judge that flower because that flower has like 3 petals instead of 4, or that tree is kind of wonky toward the left, and we just see it as like, oh my gosh, look at that beautiful tree. And it's interesting how we can't do that with, or we've chosen not to do that with human beings, where we've been implemented this idea of like what is correct and what is beautiful and what's, so anyway, I'm going down a tangent again, but
No, no, you did. You actually touched on a couple really important topics that I wanted to talk to you about there. So I think people don't value enough that importance of self-care and self-love,
mm,
because you can't find, until you find that like internally, you're not going to be happy with what is externally out there.
yeah.
And I think a lot of people, forget about that portion.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, one thing I read, I've been reading a lot of like, well, I'm really into self-help books, just because I love to grasp like a bit of information from each of them, and like decide what works for me and what fits in my life. But I reread The Power of Now a couple months ago, and one of the things that I love that Eckhart Tolle mentions is that happiness is conditional, and that the word happy is conditional to basically your external experience, your external like what you're going through. And I thought that was really fascinating because I feel like we throw the word like positivity, happiness around a lot. And
Mm.
whereas the true essence of what I think we should all, what I believe we should all thrive for is joy and just peace. Because there's going to be all kinds of stuff pulling us in every direction, but if we could just be at least at peace with ourselves and our existence, then we'll ultimately be quote unquote happy, because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what's going to be going on out there. Yeah, that's something that I read and I was like, wow, I really enjoyed that. I'm gonna put that in my back pocket.
I love that. I love that. And self-help books are so great. I know you've mentioned in other interviews you love the Four Agreements and,
Yeah.
and different books like that. And that's one of my favorite books too.
Yeah, I just read the
So
Fifth Agreement, and I just read, and now I'm rereading the Mastery of Love, I think it's called, which is the same author, and oh, so good, just
I'm gonna have to check both of those out.
nuggets of awesomeness.
And something you had touched on before, you were talking about how you compare yourself
Mm,
before and now and things like that. One of the things that I admire so much about you is that you do not compete with other women.
mm,
There's a lot of that in the world, and something that I love is that you encourage women, you
mm.
celebrate them, even men, your friends, things
Yeah.
like that. You've talked about that, and you're very big in that. And I think that that is so incredible. And
Mm,
if we all looked at life that way and encouraging people, don't look at someone else's success as, oh, it's my failure.
yeah.
So can you elaborate a little bit on that and how you came like. Did you always strive for that, or have you encountered opposite and that changed your view on this, or
Mm.
is that just something you've always been?
Yeah, I think it's been a part of me like since I was a kid. I mean, I certainly can also say that some of it not like it's an authentic feeling, but a lot of it has come from like a people pleasing kind of deep feeling inside of me where I'm like, I want to please people. I want people to love me. Like I'm gonna, do certain things. And that also comes from a place of like, I want to show people, and that's the authentic side is I want to show people that I love them. Um, but I also would love for people to show that they love me too, because I feel like it is like a symbiotic relationship where, we this life that we lead, like it is possible to be like that. And so I think over time I've realized that like if I can share what I would like the world to represent, because at the end of the day, like I can only do so much as one human being, but if I can share what I would like the world to be like, which is be loving toward others and to be supportive and to be encouraging, then that's, I'm doing the best I can with that. And so I think that that's really important, but I also believe that there's a space for everybody, whether, it's in the acting industry, whatever it is, the work or the kind of passion that you have, I really believe that there's room for everybody. And I'm excited. Like I'm excited to watch people thrive and succeed because I remember hearing a long time ago someone say, when you're like, when you're, let's say, second quote unquote second best in line, where it's like it was between me and another girl for this role, and then the other girl ended up booking it, and not to see it as like, oh, I'm not good, or oh, like that's competition, but to see it as like, oh, that just means I'm up next, like I'm next in line for that great opportunity, and that opportunity just wasn't meant for me. And whatever that may be, whether it's, dating a guy and it doesn't work out, and it's not seeing as that as like a failure or a loss, but seeing as like, oh, that just wasn't meant for me. And I have to look beyond that part and see that there's something greater for me. And it doesn't mean you can't still, like, there's sometimes where I've had people, like not people support me, or not get something I really wanted, or not date that guy I really wanted to date. And yeah, it can hurt, and you can go through the feelings, but it doesn't own you. Like that feeling, that sensation, like you feel it, and then you kind of like move on. And I feel like that's sort of how I've always been. But I really love encouraging. I love seeing my friends succeed. I really, really do. I love seeing women succeed. I love, seeing people being represented,
Yeah.
in any industry. And yeah.
That's really, really beautiful. And I think that a lot of people should, if a lot of people experience that and tried that in their own life, I think that they would see how much joy, like I always look at it as a pay it forward option,
Yeah.
do things like that for other people. And then they'll think that they have that within themselves, and then they can go ahead and spread that around.
Yeah, and it's part of that whole, appreciation and gratitude. If you can be grateful for the things that you have in your life and appreciate what comes. And again, if you value yourself, if you love yourself, if you like appreciate yourself, then you're not going to feel like you're competing with other people, because you're going to see the uniqueness that lies within everyone, and know
Yeah.
that you're not competing with anyone, because you are your own individual, like incredibleness, and like you're just a spark in this world. And you're going to see that, like, you can shine and everyone else can shine around you. Like
Yes.
it's not like a one size fits all. There's only, 10 spots. It's not like musical chairs where like we only have 10 chairs. I've never said this before, but it just came to me. It's not like there's 10 chairs and then, oh no, we lost one chair, and then we lost another, and now we all got to fight for that one last chair. Like, I really don't believe that to be true. And yeah, when I see other people succeed, it doesn't make me succeed less. It makes me succeed more, because, and people remember, like, there's that famous thing people say, like, people remember the great impression you've left on them. Like, we don't, like, sure, we remember like those bad moments, but we really remember the moments that when someone made us feel good and
Yes.
felt like really special. And I love feeling that way. Like, I love it. And I love it when, like, I go to a grocery store and I can see, like, the person's just going with the flow, or going to, anywhere, like going to the DMV. Like, it's just such an intense process, and people can be miserable, and it's like such a weird energy sometimes. And then you just end up having such a good time with that person, and you smile, and or even just smile with your eyes, because sometimes you can't see people's mouths these days. But like, it's so important. um yeah, it means the world to me. And I think that when you start to feel that sensation of what it's like to translate like joy to someone else, and them do it vice versa, because it's contagious. Like, when you see
Yeah.
someone smile, you can't not smile, or want to, or be like, hey, what's up with this person? Like, why are they in such a good mood?
Yes.
um and it translates. It you pass it on. It's pay it forward kind of thing. And it's like that thing of like, oh, buy a coffee for the person behind you in line. But like, what if you didn't buy them a coffee, and instead you just put a smile on their face? Like, that's free, and it's really simple to do.
It really is, because I try to do that a lot as myself too. When you're
Yeah.
out, whether it's like you said, holding a door, buying a coffee,
Yeah.
I try to do that in my own life and celebrate people. Like,
Yeah.
I'll randomly go online and I'll be part of things, and people be like, oh, I wish I could join this or whatever. And if there's like anonymous things, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna do that, because if you can touch someone, even if you don't know them, I feel like sometimes people just need someone to reach out, someone to do something
Yeah.
for them with no, a lot of people feel that there's ulterior motives when you do something for them, and it's not
Mm.
the case. Like, sometimes you just want to put that spark in someone's day. They might be going through so much, and
Oh yeah.
someone who doesn't know them just did something nice for them. So that's really beautiful to hear, and I love that you do that too.
Yeah, I mean, we're all going through stuff, like sometimes it's just like there's, people use this saying like the different seasons of our lives. Like there's moments where, we're in a great season, and then a season of more, kind of like, okay, like I'm trying to like I'm like growing pains, where you're kind of like growing out of something or into something, and it's just like accepting all of those phases. And yeah, I think it's a lot of like kind of deprogramming of self, of like all of
Yep.
the things we've been like kind of taught, or learned, or like, taken on, that is just like not truth. And yeah, I really wish that for everyone to just like to do that work, and to take that on, because it's kind of daunting and it's overwhelming at times for sure. But man, it feels good to feel comfortable, um, in your skin, and kind of like appreciate life even when it's hard.
Yep. Yep. And you've always talked about how you like to journal and use candles and crystals and mantras and sage.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit how those things help you, or you find them beneficial in your own self-care and journey?
Yeah. Well, crystals, I think it kind of started where it's just I just thought they've always been so beautiful. And but I think like with any object that means something to you, whether it's I don't know, like a stone, or a gem, or a book, or whatever it is, it's just like a symbol. It's a symbol to kind of bring you back into the moment, and to put your focus on, and to put like an energy on. And that's really what it's about for me. Like with the stones, it's just like when I look at them, it's a reminder of like, okay, what does this mean for me? What does it cleanse for me? What does it like allow me to like let go of, and kind of bring you back into the now moment? Um, and with sage, I feel like anyone who knows sage, it's like a very cleansing,
Love it.
of air and energy. And because you can't like it's just a fact that we're energy beings, like no one can deny that. So I do believe in kind of changing that up, like if you're having like a challenging moment, to kind of like snap yourself out of it, and whatever that is that you need, whether it's a breath work, which is incredibly helpful, whether it's holding a stone and like putting your energy on it, or saging your house and like cleansing. And whether it's meditating, which is a huge energy shifter. And I don't know, and writing, I feel like it's a great way for me to expel whatever is like lingering within me. But it's also a great tool for manifestation for me. Like I write out a lot of goals and visualizations for myself that I see, and that I because I'm a believer that anything and everything is possible. And so I write a lot of those things out, and I also, make a vision board, so that it becomes like more of a visual, because writing is really important, but so is the visual aspect. So if the things you're writing, you also create like a visual part of it, and you look at it, and you just like, it makes you feel like ooey gooey inside, because you're like, this is possible, and I can't wait for this. And I feel like those feelings, if you can create those feelings within you, even though they're not happening now, the feeling is real, and your body believes it's real. And so what's the difference, and I think that's a really cool thing. And yeah, I guess those are kind of the tools that have worked for me. and
I
they really make me sane in times in moments where it's a struggle.
I love the vision board idea. This year I had said the same thing. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna, this year I'm focusing on me. There's a lot of things I've been wanting to do,
Yeah.
and I've always been like, oh, I'm not good enough, or no one's gonna like it, and I'm like, no, you're gonna do it this year, and you're gonna take control of it. And I started a vision board, and
Yes.
it's really incredible. So, I put up the things that I wanted. I have a photo of you on there because I wanted you on my podcast, and
Oh
that
my
came in. So
gosh.
it's really like I was like, I'm gonna do these type of things, and it's great because I was journaling too. I'm big into the journaling. So, when it
Yes.
came in, I was like, this is amazing because I would journal like, oh, this is gonna happen. And people sometimes are like, oh, that's so silly. But if you really manifest it and you believe in yourself and you believe you can do it, I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like to each their own what they believe or what they what works for them. But at the same time, like what do you have to lose? Like
Yep. Yep.
nothing, and it's like even if you have to do it in a dark closet somewhere and you write out like all the things you want or you create that vision board and you just do it for yourself and you don't tell anyone about it, like why not? Like, and it's fun and it's finding those like childlike things that brought you so much joy and playfulness. Like I think as we get older, we kind of like lose that playfulness and like I don't know about you, but I remember I used to do like collages like crazy when I was younger. Like it was like such a thing. And I would, like go through magazines and all that kind of stuff. And now I've found a much easier way of doing it, which is like I just go online and I literally just Google the exact thing I want. And then I find like the perfect picture that represents that. And then I save that and then I print them out on like a piece of paper and then I create like a billboard of the things. And it's like you said, with like having a picture of me and here we are, we're doing this. Like it's amazing the things you start to like tick off the
Yep.
list and you go back and I think it's not just like in the moment sort of doing it. It's also when you're having like a tough time or you're having a setback where you're kind of losing hope or in yourself and where you're headed, it's a great way to change your perspective. Like change the spotlight onto that. Like I can be in the woe is me moment, which is fine. Like you got to go through that, but then change the spotlight to that vision board so that it kind of like realigns you or reread like what you wrote in your journal about all the greatness coming your way and all those things, and then also be reminded of the great things that have come your way that you've written about, and that's like and or like a gratitude journal or an appreciation list of to just remind you that it's not just the big stuff, it's the small stuff. Like I put a smile on someone's face today. Um my dog made a friend today on our walk. Like just it really doesn't have to be big, and that's honestly one of the biggest joys I've had in like adopting my dog Susie is she has reminded me to stay present because she is so present. And any time I find myself not being present, I notice that she's kind of like looking at me and I want to say like she's judging me, but dogs don't judge. So she's just looking at me and reminding me like, hey, I'm here. Like come back to me. And then I look at her and I'm like, oh, you're right. Thank you. Thank you for bringing me back. And it's like really cool to have that reminder.
I'm so glad you brought up Suits because I wanted to talk about that. I have a dog. I just got a puppy last summer,
Yes.
and oh, he's a handful. And I have a lot of cats, which I did not. Only one of them I had. All the rest of them I inherited from people abandoning them, and I fell in love with them.
Oh,
So what I've found though is, especially during like a lot of tough times in the world and things like that, having a pet is so powerful because
mm.
when you're not feeling well or you may feel like in a low place, they can sense that. My
Oh yeah.
cat, yeah,
Oh yeah.
she'll come up, and when you were talking about saging, I can kind of feel when she kind of takes on my tension sometimes, and I'll sage, and then she like sits on the bed all relaxed. Like How have you, since you've gotten Suze, how has that improved your life? You were just talking about how she makes you stay present and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, by being present with her, by giving me, I think like, and I'm sure this is true for a lot of other people as well. Like, but I can only speak for being an actor. As an actor, you're working intensely during a period of time, and then you're not working, um, which is great because oftentimes you need time to recoup and all that. But like, there's this weird kind of like mentality when you're an actor where you feel like you're never going to work again after a project, and you're like, okay, this is it, like I'm never going to work, no one's ever going to hire me again. And like that's proven to be not true time and time again for most people. Um, so for me, it's given me a reminder and a purpose to love and to have someone to take care of. And she's really given me, kind of like given me grace in like showing me true love and having fun and like just being silly and playful. And like, sometimes I'll just be like, let's say, scrolling on my phone aimlessly for no reason, and 20 minutes has gone by, and then she'll like pick up her toy and come up to me and be like, hey mom, let's play. It's like, get off of that thing, come play. And I'm like, oh yeah, thanks for that reminder. Like, I'm not, and it's just like she's reminded me to be playful and to continue to breed like my feminine energy within me, which is like caring and loving. And I love taking care of her, and I love that she reminds me to take care of me. And like I think there's something really cool as well about animals, where I think we live in a society that we need to be doing something all the time. We need to be busy all the time. We need to be jet setting here, there, and everywhere. And if we're not, then we're losers and we're not accomplishing anything in our life. And then I look at my dog and I'm like, she's just listening to her body, and she's allowing herself to rest when she needs to. She's allowing herself to run around when she wants to and play when she wants to. And of course, like, it's different because animals don't have jobs and they don't have bills to pay. Darn it. But it is a really nice reminder that it's like, let's slow things down and not feel like we need to be doing something all the time, because it's often in the in between moments where we have the most discoveries. And
Absolutely, absolutely. That's
yeah.
really beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. I love that. And you've talked about a book that you love is The Five Languages of Love, and
Mm,
that your favorite is the love language is time and not gifts.
yeah.
So much value today is placed on material items and stuff. So I love to hear that, to hear people say that. So what with that have you found has been the best part for you of taking that, okay, I want the time, I don't want the gifts, I don't want those type of things.
Mm.
Uh, what made you love that feeling more than anything else in an environment now like where everything is so
Yeah,
materialistic?
I feel like a lot of the love languages are based on like maybe our like how we grew up and our youth and what was presented to us. And I feel like for me, quality time um, is something that is free and yet is difficult for some people to give. And it also requires a lot more energy to like make a plan with someone, stick to it, and really have those moments with people.
Hmm.
I don't know. For me, it's always been like, it's easy to just like, one of them is like words of affirmation. But for me, what's proven to be true is that I've had a lot of people tell me all kinds of things, but it doesn't mean it's true. No. Do they follow through with what they say? No. So words for me are very easily given for some people, and yet aren't necessarily followed through. So I've learned to kind of not hold attachments to words of certain things. And I'm not saying like I don't believe people when they say things, but it's more like put your money where your mouth is, sort of thing, as people
Yeah.
say. It's like it's like put your time, because time is ever like falling through our fingers. It's ever fleeting. And I really think that time is the most valuable thing. And I really like to give my time to the people that I love and care about the most. And whether that's taking the time to give them a mess, like a support, send them a supportive message. Maybe that's making the time to go out for breakfast, whether that's making time to go for a hike or make a FaceTime catch up. Like, I think it's so easy nowadays, like especially like bring it back to social media, like being like, oh, I see what this person's doing lately, but like, have you really touched base with them? Like, have you really talked to them? And like, I have a lot of friends that are like all over. I'm in LA, but like I have friends in Vancouver. I have family in Montreal. I have friends like a little bit everywhere. And it takes energy and time to really connect with them. And I think for me, I guess that's what it comes down to, is connection. I'm constantly thriving for connection with people. But at the same time, you can have quality time with someone and they're not willing to connect with you. So for me, what I've really noticed is like creating boundaries for yourself as well. Like, and like, are the people in your life people that you want to spend time with? And that's another really great thing, is like the more you start to love yourself and appreciate your own time with you, and being on your own and doing your own thing, and not needing to be constantly bombarded with busyness, then you start to realize that your time is really valuable, and like, who are you giving that time to? um so
I
yeah,
love,
it's like kind of a really complex
I,
thing, but
I love,
I
yeah,
love, but sorry to interrupt. I still really love like getting gifts, but I really like gifts that have like a lot of thought in them. Like for
yeah,
example, one of my friends, Sarah, years ago, um, she made me a book of like photos. It was like a little album she had printed out with like all of her photos from a couple, like throughout the last couple years. And it's just like a beautiful book that I keep on my coffee table. And like it's a couple years old now, but I still scroll through it and it brings such a smile to my face, because it's a reminder of the amount of time she had to put into making this book for me, and to show how much she's appreciated the moments of our friendship. And yes, it's a material object, but it's like so meaningful to me. um
I
so
love
those are the
that.
kinds of gifts that I'm into. But hey, don't get me wrong, I appreciate, a nice pair of shoes and a purse and this and that. But like, I'm not totally not into some material things, but I do appreciate more that quality time versus the gifts. But again, like, depending on where you come from, what your history is, maybe that's what shows to you, where you're like, oh, that person went out and got that specific thing for me that I wanted, and to me that is so meaningful. Now that I have that purse or whatever, I think of that person. So it's no judgment. It's just like, that's kind of like where I'm at, where that's what
Yeah,
works for me.
yeah, I love that. And I love when you talked about, essentially, are you honored by the company you keep?
Yeah.
And a lot of what I found is that, I used to just give my energy to anyone, and I'd be like, oh, okay. And, like sometimes I'd be talking and I'd be on the phone and I'd be just sitting there, and I'd be listening, but not there. So now
Yeah.
I find myself, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to have a conversation with someone, or if I'm going to give my energy to them, I would rather give them 10 minutes of 100% of my energy, because I love and care and I want them to know that, than to give
Yeah.
them, 30 and 40. Is that how you kind of look at it too?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a part of it. I also realize, like, over time, that sometimes you're not going to be able to pick and choose like who you can be surrounded by,
Hmm.
and it's making the most of it, and going at it from a perhaps a different perspective, rather than just like sitting there and being like, ugh, these people again, and like being a Debbie Downer about it or whatever. Like there's so much greatness in everyone. And sometimes we can be like triggered by people, and I'm a big believer in like, okay, like if I'm triggered by this person, like what is it that this person is reminding me about myself, or that they're showing me about themselves, that perhaps I can give them a bit of grace, and look beyond that and see like where they're really coming from, because we're all coming from like a different story and a different reason why we all behave the way that we do. So I that's a big part of it. But I also, I create boundaries with people. Like I think it's real, and that's something I did not have growing up. Like I did not have boundaries. Like, oh, you want to hang out with me and you want to love me? Great. Yeah. Like I'm a people pleaser. Let's do this. I'm going to overfunction and go out of my way and give you all of my energy, and then have nothing left for myself and be completely depleted. Like,
Yeah.
but now I've realized where I'm like, okay, like if I leave from hanging out with this person and I feel depleted, then maybe I gave too much of myself, or maybe I just give less time to that person, or maybe I need to reassess that entire friendship or relationship, and realize that maybe it's not working. Because I think, again, bringing it back to like that symbiotic relationship where like it, the way I see it is like I give to you, you give to me, and it doesn't need to be in the same way, but let's like fill each other's cup, but
Yes.
I also can't put expectation on somebody else to fill my cup. I have to come at it with a cup already full. And that requires me to do my own self healing, my own self love, my own self care. Um, because I can't, again, and that's something I am very guilty of in some past relationships of getting upset when someone wasn't doing what I wanted them to do. Meanwhile, I wasn't doing that for myself. And so I was like getting upset about something, but I wasn't doing it for myself, because me doing that for that person was like a way to avoid my own thing. And I
Mhm.
think that that's true for a lot of people, is like we're so focused on like helping other people and doing all that, but it's like you can only help and put out as much as you're giving to yourself. And if you're not giving and filling your own cup, then you're just basically spitting out air, to other people. And so I feel like I over time have, I've unfortunately lost some friendships. I've, taken some steps back from certain friendships and or relationships or whatever. And it's sad and it's heartbreaking, but you also realize that, sometimes it's just not forever, and that's okay too. And it doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means you can love them from afar, and you have to do what's right for you. And sometimes you just need space. And maybe, you don't spend a full day with that person. Maybe you just grab a coffee or whatever it is. So I take a lot more time for myself in like what it is that I feel and need. And then I also, I'm old enough now where I've kind of like chosen the people that are around, that are in my inner circle, and I'm super grateful for that, because I feel like I'm so honored by the people in my life. Like I just love them. They love me. Like I feel like it's such an incredible thing, and I feel like we can be open and honest with each other even when it's difficult, and and we can grow from each other. Sometimes our friends and family can be the ones who are going to like teach us the most. We have to be open to that, and we have to be ready to receive, and sometimes it's going to be hard to receive, but are we willing to do so for the our greater good or the greater good?
I love that. I love that. That's great. Yeah, it's so important with the people that you surround yourself with. And it just, like you can see it on you. You're always very happy and beaming. And, like you said, you have moments where you're not. But I mean, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing, and I say it. It sounds like I say it with ease because, but at the same time, it's because I've been through it. I get it, and we're gonna keep going through it, because that's just the ever revolving door of life.
Yep, yep, absolutely, absolutely. And when you talk about self care and things like that, you also kind of to switch topics a little bit, you do use natural products in your hair. You've talked about making your own almond milks. I know that you're
Mm-hmm.
growing your own food right now.
I know. Thanks
So
to
how
you. I'm growing my lettuce here, my arrow garden. I'm so excited. They're really thriving, and yeah, it's so exciting.
Yeah, and you had in the summer you had a garden tower that you had started. Now, have you had success in the past growing some food, or are you having a little bit more now?
Um, so this is something very new for me. It's something I have a lot of desire and will to do. Because I think there's something really beautiful about, again, coming back to appreciation of like appreciating food and seeing how much work goes into it and how much care. And I do believe that like food that you grow yourself just tastes so different, and you can really choose how you do it and the types of seed and the types of soil, and yeah, it's still very new for me. Last summer, I planted like a little succulent garden in my back area and got some plants, and it's touch and go. There's certainly some things where they're like some of my plants are struggling, and I'm like, no, what am I doing? And it's very like I'm very green as far as learning goes, and it's very new. And then with this indoor garden I have, and then I got one of my tower gardens, which last year I meant to do, and then I got backtracked because the thing about work is like it's taking me away, and then I'm gone for several weeks, and my husband is not exactly he does not have a green thumb, nor does he want to have a green thumb. So if I put so much work into it and then it dies, it's kind of that heartbreak. But this year it's like definitely one of my goals, to pursue more of that gardening aspect. But I've been kind of like on a bit of like I don't want to say like a health journey, but I've always been really interested in like healthy foods and how I can choose to be more like finite in my cooking, like using less, and less sauces, and using more things like lemon and olive oil, and like just using less ingredients, I suppose. and
Hmm.
and really, I've always been really into cooking. I am not a baker. Chemistry is not my thing. But I love that, and I love the idea of growing my own herbs and cooking with that, and I think when you start making your own stuff, like my husband never liked pesto. That was like not his thing. He was like, ugh, pesto, gross. And then I was like, okay, but I'm gonna make my own pesto, and I know you're gonna like it. And so I made it, and he's still like, he was just talking to me about it like 2 days ago. He's like, what you haven't made lately is your pesto. By the way, he doesn't talk like that. But but he was like, you haven't made your pesto in a while. And I was like, okay, yeah, you want me to make that pesto? Fine. So it's like sometimes when you buy things, obviously it's out of convenience, and I've been, I've bought lots of sauces and things like that too, because sometimes you just don't have the time, and that's fine. But when you do have the time, you really do notice a difference when it's like your own stuff, and you can use better ingredients, higher grade. And I'm kind of into that, where I'm like less quantity, more quality. And that's, I think, with time, like you learn to have more of that in everything,
Absolutely.
especially food, because it's like I feel like we put so much emphasis on so many other things, where we'll spend money on like frivolous things, and then we won't want to spend money on like an organic, apple or whatever. And it's like I realize that it's not for everyone, and they might not be in the season where they can afford that or whatever. But it's just little changes over time that I've found, that again, like I really am into more of the quality. So going back to gardening and making my own almond milk, and like I thought almond milk and all that stuff was like totally out of my realm. I'm like, I can't make that, or it's very time consuming. And it's like once you get the hang of it, you're like, that took me 5 minutes. Like really, like that was so easy. And like investing in a really good, like a Vitamix, like at the time I didn't want to spend the money to buy one, but like it was like one of the best investments I've ever made. It's become one of the staple things I use in the kitchen the most, whether I'm making soups or almond milk or smoothies, or it just sits on my counter and it's amazing. And sometimes it's those little investments that in the moment seem to be a lot, but over time, like they really show up for you and what you're doing.
Absolutely. And I found that, you know, I try to eat more, like I'm trying to really grow everything myself
Yeah,
and
you're
I've gone
crushing
a
it.
big way. I'll tell you, grow corn on the cob. That is so easy and it is incredible.
What?
Homemade stuff. Yes, I grew a whole last year. This year I'm tripling it. I got so much corn. It was the best corn I've ever had.
Ugh,
Um,
I
and
love
so
corn.
yeah, it's so good. And but I found that a lot of what since I started doing this is that the more I connect to my food, the more that I will be more leery about putting processed foods. Do I still eat pizza and stuff? Yeah, occasionally I
Of
do.
course. I
Um,
mean, come on, it's
but
pizza.
but yeah, like I find the more that I would say to everyone, hey, give it a try. Just grow something. Put a little bit out because when you
Yeah.
start when you grow it yourself, like you said, it tastes different, and it also connects you, and you can go, oh, I feel really good when I eat what I've grown at home, versus oh, I'm gonna
Totally.
go grab all this stuff, and then you realize how much salt and everything is in the foods.
Yeah, it's again, it's that appreciation and like the taste, the time, the effort, the attention. Like I this is gonna be silly, but I'm sure you can relate. Like I talk to my little lettuces and I'm like, like one of them I totally thought was not gonna grow. I thought the seed was kind of like weird, and it was ever all of the other ones were like you going for it, sprouted and ready to go and like growing like crazy. And this other one was so slow. And I was like, what's going on with you, buddy? And then, I was just like talking to him and or her or it or whatever. And it's like totally sprouting now. It's like alive. And I'm not saying it was because I was talking to it, but I was like, again, it's like our impatience of like, oh, why aren't you like all the others? But I was like, this lettuce is doing him. He's like, I'm going to do me. I'm going to grow at my own rate. I'm going to do my own thing. And it's coming along. And I'm just like so amazed.
I was doing that this morning because one of the simplest things to grow is microgreens. I love
Yeah.
microgreens,
So
and
good for you.
yeah, and so there's one that I use, and it's back to the roots. It's an organic microgreens one, and so it grows in like 7 days.
Wow.
And I'm like, usually the seeds are sprouted. So this morning I'm down there, they're under the lights, and I'm like, you guys need to grow because I need you for my salad. And so and it does, like, and then like in the afternoon I went down and there's one little one that has a little sprout, and I'm like, yes, that works.
Yes. Totally. And again, like it's kind of, I think that's another thing too, like bringing it back to like living in the present and in the now. It's like to watch you grow something and to watch it grow and sprout. And you're looking at the beauty of nature and you're just like, this is unbelievable. Like I grew this or it grew in my space and I'm just like, wow, like you're just watching it and you're back to the present moment. It's the same thing with the animals. Like there's just something really valuable about nature that just reminds you of what really matters.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I even grow, like, for my pets. I showed you the dog
Yes.
salad, and I put him, out when in the summer, like when I'm growing, and he runs around, and so I've got to put up fences though because he tries to eat now. He'll run around and grab all my cucumbers and
Oh
tomatoes, and
no.
people, and so I asked the vet, I'm like, is it okay that they eat vegetables? And they're like, yeah, if they're just regular ones. So I always go every
Oh
week. I go
yeah.
to the store, buy carrots, so my dog gets carrot snacks,
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, so it's great.
Suze is obsessed with vegetables. Like, she eats cucumber, carrots, avocado, you name it. Like, can't get enough of it. It's so
I love
funny.
that. That is amazing. That is amazing. So I do want to ask you, for your work, a
Yes.
lot of people have asked you what your favorite role is, but I want to
Mhm.
ask you, what has been the most challenging role that you have done and why?
Ooh, great. I love that. Um, well, it's tough because they're all challenging in their own ways, but so I'll probably say two things. I'd probably say Unleashing Mr. Darcy was one of the more challenging roles for me because it was my first lead in anything. And I was literally in every single scene of that movie except one scene. And and so I would say that was extremely challenging for me in that it was something totally new. I was nervous. I wanted to do such a great job. I was so in love with the script and the character of Elizabeth and all the dogs. And then also working with dogs was challenging and new for me. I mean, I'm obsessed with animals, but to work with them is like a totally different experience. And so I would say that was really challenging because it was such an incredible opportunity for me. And I really wanted to do a great job. And, these movies are shot in like 3 weeks. You're at work, you're at work for like 13, 14 hours a day. It's tiring. You have a lot of dialogue. And so that was really a really great learning experience, and also very challenging. And of course, since then, I've been able to do similar types of roles very successfully. Oh, there's Sue's barking in the background. And so I would say that was probably my more challenging one, but in a wonderful way. But then I would say Web of Dreams, which was a VC Andrews movie on Lifetime. That was a very challenging role. I played Jillian, who is an antagonist to say the least. And to really, and it was really complex material, and to play a period piece and to really create a character that was not necessarily likable, but also to realize that within those unlikable characters, like, what is the reason why people do what they do? And everybody has a backstory, and everybody has reasoning for what they do. You might not agree with it. You might not think it's right, but it just is. And so that was a really, to find love for a character that's not on paper exactly lovable can be a very challenging but a really fulfilling experience. And I find myself really attracted to the challenging characters because it's a lot of work, but it's really validating, and it's kind of like a muscle, like you're going to go to the gym and you're going to lift, you're going to do bicep exercises, but you have to sometimes exercise your tricep because, your bicep's going to be big, but then your tricep's going to be like weak. And it's all, so as an actor, you want to be able to exercise all those facets of your artistry to kind of like stay in shape and get stronger as an artist. So I really enjoy those.
I love those films too. I was watching last night. I was watching you in My Ex-Husband's Killer New Girlfriend.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like,
That's a tough title because they changed it.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta ask her which character is the least like you that you've ever played.
Least like me? Oh man. Well, I'd probably say like all the antagonist characters for sure, because I definitely don't consider myself an antagonist in life. I mean, we all have, like little sides of ourselves. If we're not getting good customer service or something, we're like, listen, and and our little like antagonist side comes out or whatever. But yeah, Jillian in Web of Dreams is certainly not anything like me, but I think as part of an actor, and one of the reasons we're able to play certain things is we're able to have empathy for certain people, even when it's difficult to have, and find like the reasoning, like I said. So, despite certain characters like Ashley Stanton, for example, like on Heartland, she was an antagonist and she had a lot of reasons for doing what she was doing. She was a on paper spoiled brat who, was kind of like rude to Amy's character and all this kind of stuff. But she also had like another side to her, which I was lucky enough to get to show on the show, because that's the great part about being in a series where you get to, you really get to kind of like dig deep, and you have a lot of like time to show that character arc. So yeah, probably Jillian. There's also, in, I think, what was the one I did? The Wrong Stepmother, where I'm, murdering people. So yeah, that's definitely not really like me.
I know everyone's always like, "Oh, I want to talk to you about the Hallmark ones," and I love them too, and the Lifetime ones you do. But I'm over here like, "Oh, I wanna watch like serial killer stuff and like
For
someone
sure.
like
I mean,
stealing
listen, we
kids
all,
and."
yeah, and to each their own, but yeah, those are really fun to do. They're really fun to play.
I love it, and I do love the Christmas movies that you did this year. They were really great, and
Thank
I
you.
recorded them, so I find some days if I'm on the weekends, I'm like, oh, I'm stressed. I'm like, I'm gonna put this on because it puts you in that really feel good place,
Oh yeah.
and I love those roles that you've done as well too. So
Thank
thank
you.
you, thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh no, they're so fun. Yeah, this year was great to do two Christmas movies. I mean, that was amazing. Yeah, and I Christmas is my favorite time of year, so I'm all about it.
I get so excited when I heard you talking about on one of the other podcasts. You were like, "Oh, I decorated way early," and I'm like, "Oh yes, thank you." There's a lot of people who
Yes.
does that. I do it too. I'm
The
usually the
music,
person
the
who's
movies, everything.
yep. The day after Thanksgiving, I'm like, all right, I'm going to chop down my tree.
Done.
And
Yep,
yep.
absolutely.
So, do you have any new projects coming up that you can share?
Well, I do have a movie that will be coming out at some point on the Hallmark Channel, Love in Action, which is a movie I did with Chris Russell and Christy Will Wolf. But I'm not sure when that's coming out yet. So, fingers crossed. And then in the meantime, I have a couple things floating around, but nothing I can really talk about right now. And but it's been a really good opportunity to have a bit of downtime to really just connect with myself again, and also developing my own projects and writing. So that's really cool. So that's a part of stuff that I have never done before. So I'm pretty excited about that. So that's certainly something in my future, potentially like producing and stuff like that. So, yeah, so I'm just kind of like developing different sides of myself, and I'm excited to see what's next. It's the ebbs and flows, and last year I worked quite a bit toward the end of the year, so I feel really grateful that I'm able to have this time, and not feel like I need to constantly be at it, which is a really great thing.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
you do some great projects, so we're very
Thank
thankful
you.
and blessed to have you on here. And thank you, Cindy, so much.
Thanks,
And
Laurie.
how?
I'm super pumped for you.
Thank you so much. And how can people find you?
So people can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at Cindy_Busby. And I also have a Facebook page for myself, which is just Cindy Busby. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm definitely most active on Instagram, just because it's more of a visual medium, and I think people are more into that. And I know people are into TikTok and all that, but I maybe down the road, maybe I'll do something silly. I've had a couple ideas, but I just like it's just so time consuming.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, sometimes I see people with all the social media. I'm like, I can barely
I
keep up
know,
with
and
like
good for
three.
them,
So,
because it is like a lot of work to maintain those. I don't want to be on my phone all the time.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Cindy, for joining the show. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you have a great rest of your month. And I know it's your
Thank
birthday
you.
coming up. So
Yes.
happy birthday.
Thank you so much. And congratulations on this new podcast. I think this is an incredible thing. I think you're doing an incredible job, and I'm super excited to see what's next for you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. You're the best.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye bye. Thank you all so much for tuning into that episode. I hope that you really enjoyed it as much as I did. I was very nervous. She was my first guest, so as it started, you could probably all feel my nerves in there, but as the conversation progressed, we really got to dig in and have a good conversation, and I'm so grateful for that. I am going to include topics that Cindy and I discussed in the interview in the show notes. So if anyone is looking for any information on her, all of that is there. If you guys enjoyed the episode today and you want to leave a review, I would be so grateful. Or if you want to share this with any of your friends or family, that would be wonderful as well. I hope that you all have the best week. I'm very excited for my next couple episodes as well. And I'm so thankful to everyone who's tuning in. For the people who have left me reviews, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And for the people who have reached out and contacted me and let me know that my story was very impactful for them, I am so grateful to hear that feedback and to have those conversations with people. So thank you all so much for supporting me on this journey. It means the world to me, and I hope that you'll continue to tune in, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.